It's time for those most famous 4 words in all of mock drafting. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for something amazing. And mock drafters, start your mock draft! Boom, boom, it is time to get into this. Speaking of the famous 4 words, we have a 4-round mock draft today, and we're going to kick the tires right into this thing, starting with the Tennessee Titans. The Titans are here. And it sounds like gladiator effect, but with that number 1 overall selection, I'm going Abdul Carter. I can't pass up on a talent like that. No chance on it either. Hey, I would even take Travis Hunter over I'd take a quarterback in this class. I just think getting one of those top 2 players is too big of a differential. I totally understand quarterback positioning. You need to find somebody, but maybe they get Sam Darnold. Maybe they get Aaron Rodgers for a season. Who knows, right? I just can't personally do it. I keep going back and forth on this, but it rips my head to parts saying, what do I do? What do I do? For me, I'm going Abdul Carter. They need more edge talent. They can continue to build this roster. It's not like they are a championship football team. Even if they get, if they get a really good quarterback, then yes, of course, then they got a chance. Jaden Daniels, see what he's been able to do. Overall, though, do I feel very good about the quarterback class? I'm not passing up on Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter. Armin Embu in the second round. I'm a little lower than consensus at this point. I thought earlier on, I thought I was higher on Embu, but now it seems like I feel like I'm a little low on Embu. Good player. I really do like him. And I think he's got a lot of potential. He's worked up his weight too. He's gotten up to 332, which is an official weigh-in over at the Senior Bowl. So that's very, very interesting to see. And I do think he hangs at tackle. He does have just under 34-inch arms, so that will be a big knock on him. But the way he plays, with his fast feet and athleticism, I think he can play tackle. Or if they want, Bill Callahan does like those bigger offensive linemen. You can move him inside and play him at that right guard position. Both areas seem to be voids for them. So no matter what, just trying to help their offensive line out in general. Sebastian Castro, Tez Johnson fill out the rest of this draft on day 3. And Castro going to be another safety with Amani Hooker, that 1-2 punch, the Iowa tandem. And then Tez Johnson, the Oregon wide receiver. Uber shifty, a little undersized, a little bit of an understatement right there. I'm not calling you a midget. Yeah, let's be clear. I'm not shaming any midgets out there. I thought, midgets are cool, man. It doesn't matter what size you are out there. Whether you're super tall, super short, medium height, all those things. But Tez Johnson will add a little bit more receiving help into the wide receiving room. Now we go on to the Cleveland Browns here with their number 2 selection. I went Travis Hunter, as I mentioned before. I'm not passing on one of those top targets, Hunter or Abdul Carter. Now, after that, I'm okay taking a quarterback. There's still some really good players on the board. Mason Graham is certainly in that table as well. But Hunter, what he brings to the table is level generational. And he is definitely in that department. He's like in the J.C. Penney's. He's in the Sears. And I'm joking, Sears. But he certainly brings the lawnmowers to the table because he can play a little bit in the backyard and in the front yard in terms of the offense and the defense side of the ball. Hunter is a guy that I can't pass up on. I would take him number 1 overall in many drafts. Shemar Stewart, top of the second round, with Myles Garrett potentially departing. Let's go get another freakish athletic specimen off the edge. He certainly needs some time to develop. He needs to work on his hands, getting off of defense or offensive linemen, and pass rushing in general is very raw in his game, but he's going to be a solid run defender and can see the field early on. Caleb Johnson, Tyler Shuck, Gunnar Helm. Johnson going to be hopefully a really good running back for this team. It's tough to replace possibly a Hall of Famer in Nick Chubb, but you're going to have to try your best. Caleb Johnson certainly adds a good runner with great vision and good contact balance. Tyler Shuck, big arm talent. Has some upside there, a little bit of an older prospect, will be 25 years old. I still question some of the decision-making in general, some upside and some potential in round number 3. I'm even seeing this guy as a possible first round. I think we're throwing at straws at this point in this quarterback class. And then you got Gunnar Helm to finish off the draft, tight end. From Texas, Hook'em Orange, going to be a good understudy for David Njoku for a season, with him on that last year of his contract and the cap situation for them being a little tricky, and they're going to have to figure that out. So I think that they try to draft and develop a tight end. Jordan Akins is also a free agent. Headed to NY, where we need a new warden at the helm at quarterback. So we got him. Cam Ward, Miami, a hurricane. He's going to bring a nice hurricane of passing deep balls to Malik Neighbors, and just hopefully a franchise guy that they desperately need. Donovan Jackson, offensive line, the Ohio State University. They need some more offensive line up. You just got your quarterback in Cam Moore. Let's keep him upright. Let's not let him get crushed to the ground. He had a good offensive line at Miami, so I want to make sure we do that here. He can move over to that right guard position, or you move John Runyon back over to the right side. Certainly makes sense. Actually played better over there. And then I wanted to get some defensive help with our next two picks. Darius Alexander, a great Senior Bowl. Very athletic, super attacking, penetrating guy next to Sexy Dexy. Yeah, we get that vibe going. And then Demetrius Knight Jr., South Carolina linebacker he's got some boom to him. He's got that run defense on lock. Now, he's going to be a good understudy there because you got to look at him. You got Micah McFadden in there, but Bobby Okereke going into the last year of his contract. I think it makes sense to draft, develop somebody at that linebacker position. And then you got Torrey Horton. If they lose Darius Slayton in free agency, well, Horton gives you another outside vertical option on the perimeter. Move on to the New England Patriots and Mason Graham, number 4. I'm taking Mason Graham. I know they need offense, but I said, who cares? I'm getting the best available player on the board, Mason Graham, the Michigan Wolverine. You stick him right in there with Christian Barmore. That defensive line is mugging dudes. Troy Harris, we got ourselves a weapon for Drake May. Trey Harris, I think he is possibly a guy that's going to rise a little bit more. Really has great movement skills for his size. And he has just been a phenomenal player at Ole Miss. I think the way he gets off the line too is super impressive. He wins on quick slants. He's not just a in or, curl, screen guy, vertical dude. He can win with intricate routes. And like I said, they need to add another playmaker in here. They got Jack Sawyer, the captain from the Ohio State University. He was BPA on the board somehow. Sometimes players fall. I don't think he falls in the actual draft this far, but you never know. Somebody always falls in drafts. That's just the way it goes. And in this case scenario, I wanted to highlight some other players, and Jack Sawyer fell a little bit. So the Patriots got a little lucky, and they got themselves a captain. Anthony Belton, 3rd-round selection, left tackle, North Carolina State. He was excellent at the Senior Bowl, pretty much locked down, won almost all his reps. And they need offensive line. Did I mention that earlier? Because they do. And they got Denzel Burke, Ohio State. They go back, they go there, getting a guy who can fill the Jonathan Jones type of role for them. Very much a cover 1, cover 3 corner. So if they continue to play a lot of those vibes, I think he's going to fit in nicely to be a Jonathan Jones replacement. We sprinkle over to the car racers of the draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the community. Duval! I love it, Liam Cohen. Let's go. Anyway, those vibes are real right now. We get Will Johnson. I know you're saying, you do this one every week, G-Sling. Why can't you mess it up? Well, why can't you mix it up, not mess it up? That's something I can do. I can mess it up for sure. But Will Johnson, he's just a good player. He's somebody who comes in day one, and he can take this cornerback room and elevate it. Xavier Watts, I'm going to do what the Philadelphia Eagles did. We're going to double dip. I'm going to go get 2 secondary pieces for this defense and overhaul that with Xavier Watts, another playmaker for them in this secondary, and hopefully they can do similar vibes to what the Eagles did. I mean, they're going to need a Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio is, hard to find a Vic Fangio. Then you got Jaden Higgins, Iowa State wide receiver, Princely Umamiel in here with a couple other 2 picks. And with Higgins, going to add another outside wide receiver. Gabe Davis hasn't really worked out, so I want to at least add some more competition, and I felt like he was on the board and a BPA option for them. Princely Umamiel, another pass rusher. They need a little bit more depth. Yeah, you got your 2 studs, but you need some backup there. Miles Frazier. Get him off the floor. Get him off the ground. Down goes Frazier. But this time, up goes Frazier on that offensive line. Has some versatility, but he can be an understudy at that right guard position. I imagine they signed somebody in free agent to fill a Brandon Sheriff void, but he can be a good developmental guy at that right guard position. Jonah Monheim to finish off their draft, a developmental center position. Let's go gamble with the Vegas Raiders now. Number 6. I'm gambling with a great running back, and to me, the odds are in our favor. It's going to be Ashton Jeanty, the running back from Boulder, Boise State. He's going to be a beast for this team. And with their new Marshawn Lynch, should I say, for Pete Carroll, going to be an absolute monster in that running back workhorse. Jaxson Dart, round number 2. And you're going to get yourself somebody maybe you can develop. Hey, you take a chance here I felt better about doing this than going even Shedeur Sanders. There's a lot of hype there, and I try to mix things up too because Shedeur Sanders seems to get mocked there over and over again. There are other opportunities for this team. They don't have to go quarterback at that number 6 overall pick. Dart has a lot of upside with his arm talent, with that little flick of the wrist that he has, and overall athleticism. Got to get better under pressure. That's the big thing. Under pressure. And then he got Darian Porter. Big, tall, lengthy cornerback. You know Pete Carroll loves those vibes, and that's what we're going to get. Very raw, but if there's anybody that can foam him up, then boom, Pete Carroll in this defense. You got Jalen Royals and Jeffrey Besa, and these two guys, at different positions and different side of the football field. Jalen Royals going to add another playmaker on the outside. I love how smooth he looked at the Senior Bowl. Still got to clean up that route run and show more nuance in his route tree. And then Jeffrey Besa from Oregon, going to be a really good linebacker for them. They need help there with both of their guys, Spillane and also Robert Spillane. Pardon me, Spillane. I'm like trying to get the name coming to me. I was like trying to talk a little bit while the name was coming to me. But Robert Spillane and Devon Diablo, both being free agents. And let's go ahead and get a little more help just in case the iceberg isn't ready and Tommy Eichenberg onto the Jets. Jets. That was a different way of saying it, but Josh Connolly Jr., one of my guys in this class. I'm a huge fan of it. I'm a Ducks fan as well, so maybe that's part of it. I'm also a Jets fan. Anyway, no bias here. There's no bias. I keep all the biases out the window, and I mean I'll open the window right now for you. But I'm going to go get Josh Connolly Jr. Let's go establish bookend tackles for the future. Hey, if there's anybody that knows a thing about great offensive tackles, it's going to be Aaron Glenn and the value that can have. Then you get Nick Emanwari, the safety from South Carolina, the long, the tall, the super explosive safety player that's going to be a tight end eraser. He's going to be a jack of all trades safety that can play in the back end and ultimately a chess piece for this defense going forward for AG. Then we got Deone Walker, another chess piece on that defensive line for AG is going to be Deone Walker. Put him up next to Quentin Williams, baby face. You got yourself a couple of stud babies on that defensive line with tremendous size. Jalen Milroe, quarterback, Alabama. We take the chance with the quarterback here. Jalen Milroe, super athletic. Let him be a running back early on if you have to. We'll see who their quarterback is. I have no idea what the Jets are going to do. However, Milroe, I think, presents a great opportunity on day 2 for them to draft, develop, and not rush into anything. They can play for next year if they need to. This is a long future-proofing scenario for this Jets team where they don't need to force anything. Let's get down and keep pounding to the Carolina Panthers. Here with the number 8 overall pick, I'm going Mykel Williams, the edge rusher from Georgia, the ever-polarizing Mykel Williams, should I say. Is this a little early for Mykel Williams? Yes, but hear me out. I do think Mykel Williams ends up going high in the draft. The talent, the traits, they're there. I think he's a high floor player as well because of those traits, unless he just doesn't have the work ethic with it. I've heard so many great things about Mykel Williams off the field. This guy has got the traits to succeed, but he doesn't just have the traits. He also has the work ethic. So if he has the work ethic, it's just a matter of time. He was used very sparingly too as a true pass rusher, which will infiltrate some of those pass rushing stats that other players are able to benefit from that Mykel doesn't, because he does have to line up on the inside as a 4-eye or even at the nose sometimes, and that does affect your pass rushing stats. It's not easy to win there as it is to the edge, and just there is a lot there to be worked on. He still needs to get better with his hands. And then you got Xavier Restrepo, wide receiver. Now here's a guy that's going to be able to step in right away and give Bryce Young another target. And then you got Kevin Winston Jr., the safety. I thought this was a steal for them, getting themselves a really good secondary player in that back end. And certainly an area that they need to improve upon. A lot of free agents. So we'll see if they bring back Xavier Woods or depending on what they decide to do in free agency. Overall, they need to improve the secondary. And I'm going to add another secondary piece here in the slot. Jacob Parrish. And he'll perish some opponents in the receiving game. A really feisty guy despite that size. I thought he was really sharp too at the Senior Bowl. Not perfect, okay? I think he's not the most athletic guy. However, I really like how the way he plays and the twitch that he has, and certainly somebody that's going to come in there, fill a locker room, and be a good slot corner. And then Aeneas Peebles from Virginia Tech, going to add that pass rusher in that room next to Ashawn Robinson and Derek Brown. Getting healthy next season will be tremendous, but Peebles going to be a good pass rushing guy, especially early on in his career. Time to do some marching. And I'm not talking about Penguins, even though I like Penguins a lot. We're talking about the New Orleans Saints here. And I'm going Shedeur Sanders, quarterback, Colorado. The big ass stripped off the board. Where will Shedeur go? Here he goes, New Orleans Saints. He heads to the Superdome, well, the Mercedes-Benz Dome, whatever. But Shedeur Sanders is going to be a really, really nice quarterback for them. And Derek Carr, I just don't know. It depends. Is Kellen Moore going to want to roll with Derek Carr? That is the big question mark in the air right now. I think that Mickey Loomis could get aggressive. They need to get younger at the quarterback position, get cheaper, because their cap situation isn't a little bit of harem-squarum situation. I would love for them to reset for a couple of years, then kind of revisit this thing and rebuild. But overall, Shedeur Sanders gives them a potential franchise quarterback that they've been looking for since Drew Brees. Colston Loveland giving him a weapon at the tight end room. He was available here, so I said, let's go for it. Foster Moreau, I believe, is a free agent. You got Taysom Hill going last year, his contract being expensive. And then Juwan Johnson, also a free agent. So let's find that future tight end and Colston Loveland. And then we got Jonas Savaiinaea here, offensive line. They need to protect Shedeur Sanders, something he wasn't really awarded at Colorado all the time. So let's make sure we do that, improve this guard position. Whether Savaiinaea plays left guard or Cesar Ruiz, they'll figure that out. Judkin's going to be a good understudy there for Kamara. They need a number 2 guy, at least add some depth. Billy Bowman Jr., the Oklahoma safety, gives him a versatile Tyrann Mathieu, maybe replacement and an understudy there. And then you got Joshua Farmer. He's going to come over here with his farming skills, planting up those tomatoes and bolstering it up on that defense line with his power and strength profile. Just needs to work on his pass rush moves. Ben Bears Don't Break Johnson. I had to rehearse that a couple of times. That's a tricky one to say. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Bears, what we did for him. Will Campbell, offensive I'm telling you, try saying that. Ben Bears Don't Break Johnson. If you say that 10 times fast, I'll have to give you a donut or something like that. But anyway, Will Campbell, your offensive tackle from LSU, gonna either play guard or left tackle, be there possibly competing with Braxton Jones. Best man wins. And who slides into left guard? I think the Campbell would probably be your day 1 starter there. However, they need to upgrade the offensive line. Ben Johnson also knows a thing or two about great offensive linemen. Omar Norman Lott, the uber pass rusher. You put him on that defense line next to Gervon Dexter. You're forming yourself an elite duo. And Andrew Billings still around town getting healthy as your run defender. Nick Scorton, edge rusher from Texas A&M. Going to be another pass rusher in there. Be an understudy for DeMarcus Walker in that role opposite of Montez Sweat and Austin Booker in the room. And then with their final pick, who? Cam Skattebo. That's who we're going to go ahead and take. The Arizona State Sun Devil himself. The dude that is just the ever versatile, the ever electric. What he brings to the table with his motor and his power and grit. He screams a bear to me, and that's what we're going to add. Add that David Montgomery type of running back with DeAndre Swift. A great 1-2 punch for Ben Johnson. On to the San Francisco 49ers. I'm going to go add in a pass rusher and Walter Nolan on the defense line. They're getting a little bit older on that interior. I think that makes sense for them to juicify that up. Malik Collins going to last year of his contract. Same thing with Javon Hargrave. Hargrave just really hasn't worked out. Unfortunate injuries and whatnot through his career. Nolan adds a beast in the room. Marcus Bowe. This is a pick I know over and over again for the 49ers, but I love the fan. He just screams to me, 49ers, exactly what they move. He can go on the move. He's an athletic specimen, and his hand technique is excellent as well. Just needs to work on his power. He has solid enough length, too, just under 34-inch arms. I do think he can hang a tackle, but it'll be a decision whether he plays guard or tackle. Hey, you could even try him at center. I actually think he's either a center or a tackle. That's personally the way I see it. Now, we drafted a center at Jared Wilson. It's going to be a great athletic guy as well for them, and help fill in for Jake Brendel long haul. But Kyle Kennard in the 3rd round, edge rusher from South Carolina, adds some more juice. Udo Gross-Matos and Leonard Floyd both going into the last year of their contracts. So let's make sure we juicify this up next to Nick Bosa. Opposite of Nick Bosa. That'd be two, you put them next together each other. And then we got Shamar James, Florida, linebacker, a really, really talented linebacker that looked really good at the Senior Bowl, showing off his coverage ability. And hopefully they bring back Dre Greenlaw, but if they don't, they're going to have to add to that positional group. And then with their final 2 picks, Zy Alexander and Dylan Simpson, adding some more depth in their cornerback room. And at running back room, they've been through so many injuries, so it seems like you got to draft running back every single year. And Sampson is the ideal fit for this team, in a zone-based team with his speed. He just screams like a Shanahan style of running back. Then we go on to the Cowboys. I'm going Air McMillan. He was on the board. I ran and I got him. It was a secure to me, easy selection for the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones. You can't screw it up here, Jerry. No, I like Jerry Jones. Personally, I'm one of the people that likes Jerry. But you got Shemar Turner, Texas A&M interior pass rusher. This guy just has oozing traits. He really does. And he's somebody I think is being underrated on that Texas A&M defensive line. He was just kind of asked to stop the run because he's such a good at holding the point of attack. Despite his undersized frame, he has the frame to continue to add more muscle mass and get stronger and get bigger. But the athletic traits are really what screams this guy has potential as an elite 3-tech. And if you lose Osa Digizua, and even if they don't lose Osa Digizua, you're going to need some more help on that defensive line in general. Maybe it would change. You go for more of an Alfred Collins type if you keep Osa and try to find more of a run defender guy. So that's just going to be a big thing in what they do in free agency. I just said, hey, let's go add in a Shemar Turner with his upside. And then Malachi Moore. I think Malachi Moore is so underrated in this draft class right now. He screams to me solid safety at the next level. I just don't know what it is about Malachi Moore, but he's always around the football. And yes, he's been known for getting beat a couple of times here and there. Like, that's the thing when you think about Malachi Moore and get stuck. But you don't always remember the plays that he does make. And he makes a ton of plays around the football. He's versatile too, can play in the box, can cover. And yes, he doesn't have crazy speed. I do think he's going to be more of a traditional safety, but he does give you versatility. I love what he brings to the table for this Cowboys in that secondary. They need more help in the back end. Malik Hooker could be, or Donovan Wilson, or could be both cap casualties here very soon. To the Finns, and I'm going Gray Zabel, offensive line University, North Dakota State. He's going to come in right away, be a day one starter. They need help on this offensive line. That's why I double dipped. I got Wyatt Millum from West Virginia. Let's go and make sure this offensive line gets the help it needs because they have struggled with this for years and years and years. Did I mention years? It's been decades, it seems like. So let's improve this offensive line once and for all. They need to overhaul it, and that's what I'm doing here with Zabel and Millum, going to help bolster this interior for the future. And then you got Alfred Collins here, going to bolster the interior of the defensive line. It was trench warfare out here. Like, we're stealing all the offense and defensive linemen for this Dolphins team. They need to improve the trenches. That is the number one need for this team. And then we got Kyle McCord, quarterback, going to be a good backup for this team. Absolutely need to invest in a good backup. Whether it's free agency, whether it's a draft, they have to do it. And then you got Orlando Gaston, a good story. Let's bring his dad played here, and he got a lot of good memories there with him. And now you get some more good memories with Orlando Gadsden. Going to be a good number 2 tight end for this team with under Jonnu Smith is going to last year of his contract, and he's been awesome. And then we on to the Indianapolis Colts here, and I'm going Siobhan Revel, or Revel, however you want to say it, if you want to get fancy out there. Actually, I need to see exactly how it's pronounced. It may be Revel, but I'm going to go with Siobhan Revel because it sounds cooler. Or Revel, but you got a cornerback with elite size or a good size, maybe not elite size, 6'1", just under 6'2", 188, very, very good size and great athleticism. And if it weren't for that ACL tear, I think he'd be a top 10 pick. And if there's anybody that loves those RAS scores, it's Chris Ballard. We got a couple of RAS guys in this draft too. Elijah Arroyo is going to also be a top tier tester, a very athletic tight end for them that they can find on day 2. I want to change it up because, we got Tyler Warren all the time. And I know Colts fans are like, we love Tyler Warren, but we see it every single week. So it's either cornerback or tight end. So I need to probably shake that up too. I'll shake it up next week. I'll go with like a tight end tight end. Go with an offensive tackle or something. That would really shake it up. But Chris Paul here in round number 3, going to be a good linebacker to pair along with Jair Franklin. Give him a little more coverage versatility with Paul. And then R.J. Harvey. Oh, I love that addition for them because they need a receiving back in this room. And they've been missing that since Nyheim Hines. You pair him up with JT. Harvey's going to be that speed, going to be that explosion, and the receiving back with JT's thunder. Did somebody say Thundercats? Ho! But we got the whole Thundercats over to the Atlanta Falcons, and we got James Pierce Jr. going to help out that pass rush, man. They need the Thundercats when it comes to the pass rush. They don't have much. So we do add James Pierce Jr., going to be a great pass rusher for them. And they got Emory Jones, right tackle of the future, protect, blindside, Michael Penix Jr. in this case scenario. They need to invest in that tackle room. And then you got Noah Williams from California, the Cal Bear, who's uber smooth in man coverage, extremely sticky, and somebody that, I'm not going to use too many puns of words, but definitely going to add some more secondary help. You could always re-sign Mike Hughes and move him inside of the slot because they need to improve in that slot ideally. And if you sign Hughes, he has versatility to play inside out. I mean, he looked good on the outside. However, I think he definitely could move in there if you needed him to, especially if they're going to play man coverage quite a bit. And then go on to the Arizona Cardinals, Tyleik Williams, the interior defensive lineman. Yes, he may not ever flash with 10-plus sacks a season, but he's going to be a stalwart mainstay on your defense line for years to come. That is my view. He's just one of those no-nonsense guys that you add to your roster and you feel very, very good about. Maybe like a Christian Wilkins level good about it. He's just going to be a very good football player. And they got Jalen Milroe, an underrated player, in my opinion, in this draft class. There's a couple of receivers I really like on day 2. Jalen Milroe's one of those guys. If you bring up the Lad McConkey of last year, I think Jalen Milroe has some of those similar traits. Very, very smooth route runner. Catches everything, it seems like. And just going to be a great natural separator for whoever gets him, and pairing him on with Marvin Harrison Jr. in the room. JT Tuimoloau fell to the 3rd round. That's probably not going to happen, so I'm going to fair warn you, Cardinals fans. But if it does, you run to the board. He's one of the best coverage edge rushers as well in this draft, which the Cardinals do drop their edge rushers quite a bit. Then Jalen Rivers, offensive lineman, play tackle and guard. I think he slides inside and be that phone booth blocker that he is. Super long arms, 35-inch plus, and a massive frame in his arsenal. So going to be a good interior player, be an understudy if you bring back Will Hernandez. Maybe you develop him, or Evan Brown, depending on who you bring back. But Isaiah Adams is one of your locked-in starters maybe, and then Rivers can be a developmental guy at the other guard spot. The Cincinnati Bengals, I'm going Malachi Starks, the safety from Georgia. Absolutely need to add a versatile chess piece in that back end, that secondary. Why'd you let go of Jesse Bates? That's the crazy part about it. But let's make a wrong a right now. Let's go get Malachi Starks, address it, fill out, help that defense for Al Golden. Then you got hopefully a golden edition, right? Ooh, the dad joke. That's not even a dad joke. That doesn't even qualify. That's so bad. But Ariante Ersfree, the Minnesota, the Gopher, going to be a nice Gopher for this team. And hopefully the sun will be shining bright here for Cincinnati, and he'll see a shadow or whatever they call it nowadays. When is Groundhog's Day's got to be coming up? Maybe it's already passed at this point. Who knows? But Ersfree going to be a big monster there who certainly could see a shadow with his size. And I moved him to the interior. I think he'll be better on the inside. That's just my opinion, but some people will put him at tackle. It's going to depend on your scheme. I think for this team, you would want to move him inside to guard. And then you got Ashton Jeanty from Louisville, an underrated pass rusher in my opinion. This guy he knows how to win. He's consistent with his hands and using his hands, and has a ton of counter moves to his plan. He isn't the most athletic or big time frame. He's not Mikael Williams in that regard, but he is a really, really good pass rusher. Whoever gets this guy, you got to be so happy you're going to get a stud. Danny Stutzman, speaking of stud, I see, okay, that was better, right? Come on. I had to redeem myself for the Gopher joke earlier, and also the golden joke. Stutzman, going to be a good understudy there for Jermaine Pratt in that linebacker room. Got to add somebody with him going into the last year of his contract. Akeem Davis-Gaither is also a free agent. The Hawks of Seattle, the 12th man. I'm going with a big monster interior game wrecker, Tyler Booker. He's going to be a game wrecker on the offense side of the ball on that offensive line, which they need to invest in their offensive line some more. Let's go and solidify that left guard position. Leighton Tomlinson being a free agent, they need to upgrade on that interior in general. And improving their guard position is going to help improve their run game, too. So you can hopefully lean on your 2 good running backs. And you got Jared Ivey, ever versatile on your defensive line. I think he's going to be a perfect scheme fit for Mike McDonald on that defensive line. Somebody that can play a little inside, play a little out, too. And depending on what down and distance, he's going to be their Dre Jones replacement. And then you go Quincy Riley, the cornerback from Louisville. And he's just going to be if they lose Trey Brown, got to add some more competition in there. Josh Jobe, certainly not bad this season, but I thought he was the liability in that cornerback room. So I want to make sure we add at least some secondary help. And with Woolen going into a contract year and having some ups and downs, especially as a tackler, Riley gets him. He's a different player than Woolen is, but I think he's going to be a really, really nice cover man with Witherspoon. And with their final pick, I'm going with Pat Bryant, Illinois wide receiver. Going to be another outside weapon for this team to be able to at least develop. Now, he's not a Tyler Lockett mold type of receiver. I just felt like he was the best available wide receiver on the board. And with his outside ability to be a contested catch ball winner, even though you got DK Metcalf, I just think that Bryant will certainly help them out in that regard. Jackson Smith and Jigba in the slot. And then we go on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here, and then their 19th overall pick, I'm going with the Green Machine. Mike Green, the edge rusher from Marshall, and add some more pass rush. I really, really do like what they have built in here with Yaya Diaby and also Chris Braswell, but they could still use more pass rush in here. They don't have to spend a first-round pick on it. Maybe they go out in free agency as well and bring in a veteran in the room. I could definitely see that. Overall, though, like no matter what, I would add more pass rush because it is something that they're going to need to do. Whether it's a first-round need is going to depend on who's on the board. I think they need secondary help as well. And we did that with Zazaria Thomas from Florida State. He fell on, and I'm swinging easy that way. That was an easy pick for me. One of the easiest picks in this draft with him and like Jack Sawyer early on. But Zazaria Thomas falling to 53 and Jason Light just saying to himself, wow, we got ourselves a steal, going to be another outside cornerback and maybe be the long heir apparent there for Jamel Dean. Then you got Savion Williams from TCU. Big, tall, physical wide receiver with crazy explosiveness for his size. He is kind of like a Cordell Patterson type of mold. Now, he's going to be very interesting how you're going to use this guy. And as a route runner, he is definitely not there yet, but he certainly has the talent. He's got the tools. And with the right development, you pair him up there with Mike Evans and Jalen McMillan as your 3 wide receiver tandem of the long haul. And you got some other guys, of course, filling in there as some depth pieces that they've been rocking in and whatnot. But Jonas Sanker is going to be their final pick with a safety. And he's going to be that number 2 guy with Antoine Winfield. They had some injuries to at the safety position. Now, this is something you go back and forth on because at the same time, they've got some guys there, but I do think Tyke Smith plays in the slot. Maybe Christian is more of a slot guy. However, he could be a safety for them long haul. So it really just depends on how they feel on that. But if they do want to find more of like a Jordan Whitehead type of replacement, I think Sanker could be that type of guy. So that's why I went with this. I'm not going to always do that for them because they do have some guys that can play safety for them. And it's not like it's an early draft need. It would be more of a depends what type of role they want in there. And then on to the Denver Broncos. Mile high. I'm going to go add in a super weapon and Tyler Warren. He is going to be just an ever elusive dynamic threat in here for Bo Nix. I mean, he's not an elite athlete or anything like that. I do think maybe he's not quite in that tier of a Brock Bowers as a tight end, but he's a very solid athlete. The way he's so physical at the catch point brings some sort of memories of like a Gronkowski. Just catches everything. Extremely strong hands. And also going to be a nice developmental inline blocker as well. I think he's got all the potential to grow there in that department. Still not there with his technique just yet. But I imagine Sean Payton's going to get him and teach him up in that regard. And Sean Payton loves to add a Jimmy Graham into this offense, maybe. He doesn't have quite the athleticism of Jimmy Graham. Then you got Travion Henderson. Shot out of a cannon Henderson. I think he is such a dynamic threat with the ball in his hands. And that's what they're missing. They just didn't have a whole ton of big plays. I think they had like the second lowest explosive run rate in the NFL, maybe even the first least explosive play rate in the NFL. It was up there. Let's just put it that way, not in a good way. So Henderson's going to do that. Lathan Ransom back to the Ohio State University. We had a lot of all Big Ten picks here, but Ransom going to be that number 2 guy. At least PJ Locke at this point, I want to try to find somebody there for long haul. And I think Jones and Ransom would be a nice one too. And then you got Jamari Caldwell. They need interior depth, especially if they lose DJ Jones. Caldwell could be a really good nose tackle to go along with Malcolm Roach on that interior. Go to Pittsburgh, the Bird. I'm going Luther Bird in the third. All these rhymes out here making me heard, but okay, we're done. Not Amber Heard style, but we're getting ourselves into legal trouble now. But Luther Burden going to be a excellent wide receiver for this team. It may end up being this team's number 1 for the long haul if George Pickens isn't re-signed. But now you got Burden, you got Roman Wilson maybe into year number 2 when he gets healthy. And obviously Calvin Austin stepped up this season. So even if you ended up losing George Pickens at some point after this season, if you end up trading him, who knows what could happen there. But I think that he would add in a massive help at the receiver position for whoever is quarterbacking for this team, which we'll talk about that in a minute. And then Jadae Barron, Texas cornerback, hook 'em horns, going to be a very versatile Pittsburgh Steeler type of cornerback that they love. You go back to the Cam Sutton type of role that they were looking to fill. I think Jadae Barron is a perfect add for them. Can play in the slot, can play on the outside, just depending on their personnel, who they sign in free agency. He's just going to be an immediate upgrade. And you still have Beanie Bishop, who can play in like a dime backer role, who played good as a rookie. And you got Ty Robinson, another Steeler vibe with his size and physical presence. He's going to be somebody that can work up and down that defensive line, maybe give them an upgrade from Isaiah Loudermilk on that interior of the defensive line, and also DeMarvin Leal in a role like that. Oh, the car's shaking. Oh, we're shaking out here. We're getting electrical charge, even though it's looking sunny out here. Sun's going down, actually. It's kind of cool view out here. But, man, I got to pan out the camera. We'll be doing views. We'll be turning into a scenic YouTube channel now. This is all going to be the vibes. But we got the Chargers up next. Derek Harmon, interior pass rusher. He's got tremendous size. Going to be a great addition. It's just hard to find guys with this type of size and athletic explosion to his game as a pass rusher. He's been really developed at Oregon this season, and as a run defender, he's big and strong and can hold. I mean, I do think he needs to, obviously the finishing is the big question there. Sometimes just shoots himself out of gaps, or just maybe he doesn't have the agility that a guy like an Omar Norman Lott has, or even a Tyleik Williams has, to hold that gap up times, and that can be a bit of an issue, but really going to be a nice add for them. Next to Puna Ford, you got to re-sign him, and maybe even Taylor Tart if you can bring him back, and Ogboni as well. And then Alec Ayumenor, Stanford, bringing the manor over here and keeping him out west for the Chargers, going to add another big play option for Justin Herbert. I think Alec Ayumenor is a little underrated at this point. I still like Ayumenor. I think he's still a second-round pick. Maybe even a first. If it weren't for the production this season and just Stanford quarterbacking play. And look, the separation you do worry about, but I think he's actually a solid route runner. I think he's got some decent footwork, and he's going to be a great add to this roster. You got to add weapons, and that's why I also added Mason Taylor in the third round, because they need to add in as many weapons as they can to this offense. Offensive line is also a need for them. I thought about center here as well, but I didn't really see anybody on the board that I liked at this point, especially for their scheme fit. They're going to be more of a gap, power, hunger team. And I don't know if Jarrett Wilson quite fits into that. It's an interesting one, so we got to look at all those scenarios. But I went Mason Taylor, going to be able to plug in right away and help them out of that tight end room with Will Dissly. And then Antoine Powell-Ryland, the Virginia Tech edge rusher, add some more depth at the room, and he's going to be a great speed rusher with some moves there on the outside. Just a little undersized. That's really the thing with Powell-Ryland, but he certainly adds some more juice to the room. Green Bay Packers, I'm going to do something they're probably not going to do. I'm going wide receiver in the first round. Are you crazy? Yeah, no. You know what I'm saying? But got the Jim Carrey. You know what I'm saying? Well, I can't do the eyebrows like he does. Oh, man, that's pretty crazy. You know what I'm saying? But Emeka Egbuka, the wide receiver from Ohio State, going to add a Buckeye into this room. You know they love those guys from up north and close to Green Bay, playing in the cold weather. Emeka Egbuka going to be a great wide receiver to add. That's just going to be uber reliable. And that was something that they did struggle. I know they've got a lot of guys in that room, but sometimes you need a guy that you just feel is going to be very reliable, can be an Amon-Ra St. Brown type. They see him twice a year, maybe even 3 times a year if they go in the playoffs. But Emeka Egbuka going to be a great add at the wide receiver position for this team. I think he can play inside out. I'm not worried about that, especially for Matt LaFleur in this offense. And then you got Trey Amos, Ole Miss cornerback, who's going to be a good add for them next to Carrington Valentine, compete for that number 2 wide cornerback spot. Hey, Jai Alexander could even be a surprise cap casualty or a trade candidate, so they're going to need to improve this secondary. And then you got Hosea Stewart, the Wolverine. He is a Wolverine. He brings the boom. He's got that speed to power. He's one of the most high motor effort pass rushers in this draft, and they could use some more speed off that edge. And then finally, Seth McLaughlin, if they end up losing Josh Myers in free agency, or if they just bring him back on like a 1-year deal, then McLaughlin could be a good understudy there, or at least competition. He does get a lot of flack for bad snaps. You go back to the Alabama run, he was injured early on in the season for the Buckeyes, unfortunately, and was out for the season. So the injury coming back from the ACL tear will be a big question. I believe it was an ACL tear. I don't think it was an Achilles. I'm pretty sure it was an ACL if I remember correctly. It's been a minute. But anyway, McLaughlin adds some more help at that center position. It's time for that chant. Skull, skull, skull. Minnesota Vikings, let's go. I love it. And they're going to go with Kelvin Banks Jr. BPA, that's what this is. They need secondary. They could use interior defensive line, but they could also use offensive line. They've got a couple of big voids that they're going to have to fill in this offseason. So we're going to do that here with Kelvin Banks Jr. I'm just going to let the board see how it goes. Banks, slide him into guard. He could even be the long-term right tackle for Brian O'Neill. However, hopefully, they keep Neal around as long as they can. But Banks, slide him into that guard position. Protect your quarterback. And then Dorian Strong, or J.J. McCarthy, of course, hopefully next season. Dorian Strong going to finish up their draft and add some more secondary help. I love what he brings to the table. And I thought he was super smooth in the one-on-ones at the Senior Bowl. On to the my Houstons here at number 25. I'm going with Matthew Golden. I have no idea why I just said that, but anyway, Matthew Golden is going to be a nice wide receiver ad for this team, like a Stephon Diggs type of replacement. Oh, maybe, but hey, even if they bring back Stephon Diggs, I know CJ said, hey, look, let's bring back Diggs if we can. No matter what, they need to add more wide receivers into this room. I thought that was a big problem for this team, was injuries, of course. I mean, if it weren't for the injuries, then this wouldn't be that big of it wouldn't be as top of a priority. It's just because of all these injuries, and with Tank Dell likely being out for a good chunk of the season, maybe even all the season, and Stephon Diggs coming off an ACL injury. So even if he comes back for the team, like, there's going to be some question marks how quickly he comes to pace. They need to add more help at this wide receiving room. Matthew Golden's going to add the trick there in the golden touch. And then we got on to the golden buzzer, maybe even you could say that too if we're going AGT style. Tate Radlich, Georgia, right guard. And that's what I'm looking at for him, is the right guard of the future for Shaq Mason, who could end up being a cap casualty. Radlich, he's a mean mugger in the run game. He really is. He needs to improve his hand technique a little bit in the pass game, but overall, he's going to be a very solid blocker, whoever drafts him. And you got Jordan Phillips and Dante Trader, two Maryland, Landover, Maryland guys coming over here to Houston. And with Phillips, add yourself a big, beefy, rocked up, chiseled Arnold Schwarzenegger of the defensive lineman. And then you got Dante Trader, who's a missile downhill and also gives you some versatility in the back end. While he's not a single high guy, I think they're okay with that. They don't really, they need guys that can play two high covers, shells, no problem. And I think Trader can do that at a high level. On to the LA Rams. I'm going Benjamin Morrison off the board. I love Morrison. Huge fan of him. It just comes down to the injuries. You know, the risk of injuries with the hip surgery and then also shoulder surgery, 2 hip surgeries. So that is why he falls. Other than that, I would take him top 10 and I would feel great about it. So that's the unfortunate part. You have to think about that. But this is a different scenario. Like, people are going to talk about like Andrew Booth and stuff like that past. Booth, I get it. Like, the traits were there, but I think Morrison, his tape is just undeniable. Like, he has got phenomenal tape. Really just comes down to that injury risk and debating that. But if you get him in there, even if you bring back Ahkello Witherspoon, depends on what you do with Dorius Williams. In this case, you could probably move on from him at this point since you got Morrison in here. Colby Durant looked good. So they just got to figure those things out. It may not be their top need. It just really depends. But I think Morrison would be a guy I would take. You know what I mean? And they got Charles Grant, offensive tackle, William and Mary. He's going to be that ever-developing right tackle for them of the future behind Rob Havenstein. Grant has so much upside. His length, his athletic traits. If you can develop this guy, he could be a top 10 tackle in the NFL. He has the type of traits you ooze over. And they got Ricky White, really, really tough-nosed guy. Yes, he's a little undersized at 179, 6 foot, but he has got versatility as special teams ace, blocking punts, returning, like being as a gunner. This guy has great special teams ability, and also as a receiver, I like his route running ability as well. So he's going to be another weapon for your quarterback, because I do think weapons, adding another receiver is going to be a huge need. I think they're going to be likely a Devontae Adams candidate, and that's why I haven't drafted a receiver in the first round for them lately, but we'll see how that all works out. I do think wide receiver could be a first round need, depending on how the board looks. And you got Terrence Ferguson, a nice developmental tight end for them. They're going to need to add some help here. Tyler Higbee going last year of his contract, been injured a lot, and unfortunately, he's a good tight end, but injuries. And Colby Parkinson just hasn't quite worked out as well as they would like, I would imagine. Maybe year number 2, he steps up a little bit more. And then you got Dennis Allen, who had a bit of a down year this season, still has some upside and some talent to work with there. And maybe they bring back Hunter Long on the cheap. Nonetheless, they need to add to the tight end room, in my opinion. On to the Baltimore Ravens. I'm going Josh Simmons, offensive tackle from the Ohio State University. Ronnie Stanley going to hit the free agent market, and he could get a monster contract elsewhere. Left tackles are hard to find, especially good ones. So we're going to go add Josh Simmons here to get that left tackle of the future. And then you got Jordan Birch. Hey, they could even move if they could move Roger Rosengard into left tackle if they wanted to, and Simmons could play right tackle. It just depends. But I think in this case scenario, you put Simmons at left tackle and you're Roger Rosengard at your right guard. Those bookend tackles. Jordan Birch, edge rusher / interior defense lineman. I think for the Baltimore Ravens, they would move him inside to 4-eye, 5-tech. They need some more help on that interior. Broderick Washington, solid, but they certainly could use some more help on that interior besides Nnamdi Madubuike, who's being double-teamed at a super high rate out there. So I think that Birch would be a great addition for that defensive line in general. And then Andrew Makuba, I love his name. He had a safety in there, a true safety in my eyes. See him as a playmaking, ball-hawking guy in that secondary. It allows Kyle Hamilton to play more of his versatile, ever-changing role. And then Mitchell Evans, tight end from Notre Dame, can be a good developmental guy for Mark Andrews going to last year of his contract, and they may have to move on from him this offseason, possibly, but I think they should keep him. That's just my opinion on it, despite the drop in the playoff game versus the Bills and for that 2-point conversion. Then you got Cameron Jackson, Florida interior defensive lineman, going to be a good behind target with Michael Pierce at this point, not able to play enough in my eyes that they're going to have to add more competition in there. Now, Pierce is under contract. However, I do think they need to find a number 2 guy with Travis Jones and just keeping those guys in that rotation in that nose position. The Detroit Lions, roar, roar. We got the Lion of Chambers. I'm going to back Simba, back. We're going to go get Landon Jackson because that's what teams are going to be saying. Back Simba, back Jackson. But I am a huge fan of Landon Jackson. I was just watching some film on him, and I'm like, oh, man, I've been missing some things on Landon Jackson. Where's Landon Jackson been? I really like what he brings to the table as a skilled technician. I don't know if he's got the athleticism maybe of a Max Crosby, but he's close, man, and I think he's got that technical ability as a pass rusher, a little mix of J.J. Watt even in there, I know. But anyway, who knows, whatever you want to call his mix of Landon Jackson. I love what he brings to the table. And I also love the fact that this guy at the Senior Bowl, he struggled immensely day 1 and day 2. And that's what people are going to talk about. But he got better and better as the week went on. Day 3, he looked good. The Senior Bowl, he looked amazing. He was one of the stars of the Senior Bowl, the actual game. And you know what? One-on-ones, they're great. Sure, I love to see this stuff. But you know what? I'd rather see this stuff in the game. That, to me, is the big thing. And I think Landon Jackson, his tape is really, really good. And he just has so many good counter moves to his game with his power and with his hands. Now, he does need to get stronger. I didn't see a whole ton of speed to power on his film. So that would be my only knock on his game right now. But I think his hands and his block shedding ability and his counters are excellent. You got Jack Besh, who's also very excellent. He was the MVP of the Senior Bowl. So you add in a couple of really good Senior Bowl game guys. Jack Besh, what he brings on and off the field as well. He's a tough-nosed guy, going to add that big body wide receiver in the room, understudy for Tim Patrick, who I imagine will be back. Barrett Carter is going to be a good 1-2 punch next to Captain Jack. And Barrett Carter is going to be more of that speed guy, more of that sideline-to-sideline cover guys where Jack, you just let him be that dominant run defender that he is, that leader there. I think that'd be a great 1-2 in that linebacking room. And then you got Luke Handra, Cincinnati Bearcat, offensive line, played right guard for them, and he can be a right guard developmental guy. You bring back Kevin Seidler, they're going to add more competition with Christian Mahogany filling in one of those guard spots. Who's going to be that other guard of the future? Maybe Kendra can be that. Need to add. Graham Glasgow had a bit of a down season, in my opinion. You can move him back over to right guard. That's a question whether they bring back Zeitler or not. The Commandos, the Washington Commanders. We're going Jalen Walker, edge rusher from Georgia here. If there's anybody knows how to use a guy like Jalen Walker, it's going to be Dan Quinn onto this defensive line as a hybrid linebacker, as an edge rusher. I think he will be an edge rusher long haul, but he does need to work on his play strength, getting stronger at the point of attack. But he really needs to work on his pass rush nuance, his hand technique. He needs to put together more pass rush moves. Right now, it's kind of like a speed move and occasional inside counter here and there. I actually like him playing as a pass rusher better on the inside at the A gaps and B gaps. And that's why I say as a rookie, you want to make sure you're using him as that. He's a really good run defender as a linebacker. I like his missile technique and just overall hustle. He's got a super high motor. Just really want to see him develop as a pass rusher. And that's why I think he drops for me a little bit. But the talent, the athleticism, oh, it's there. He's got so much athleticism teams are going to love. Cameron Williams, also a guy, a freak athlete for his size, or at least a good athlete for his size. And speaking of that size, 6'5", 335 pounds, tremendous length, and somebody that can be that right tackle of the future. Andrew Wiley might be on the way out, so they're going to need to develop a tackle in this room. Probably need to sign somebody, or if they feel confident Brandon Coleman is the left tackle of the future, no matter what, they're going to need to draft a tackle. And then you got Kyle Williams, or bring somebody in my opinion. Here's the other underrated wide receiver I was talking about earlier when I was talking about Jalen Noel, Kyle Williams. I need to do a film study on this guy here soon because I was watching film on him and I'm like, whoo, this guy is better than I think some of the maybe in the first round wide. When it's all said and done, maybe he ends up being one of the better wide receivers in this class. It really wouldn't shock me. I think he's got tremendous explosion off the line. And he's also not just explosion, he's got speed. he'll blow by dudes. You give him the ball in his hands, and if you take a bad angle, bye. I'll see you later. Kyle Williams has got game-breaking speed. He's got solid size, 5'10", 182. That's fine. I mean, it's not elite size, but he's got like 30-inch arms, which is fine for his size as well. I think he's got enough wingspan to get the job done, enough catch radius. I like what he does, too, for an undersized wide receiver in terms of the way he catches the football. He is a hands catcher, and he knows how to use his hands and catch the ball at the right timing. So that's the big thing I was looking at there, and his route running can just continue to get better and better. I think he's got all the traits to be a really good wide receiver. And then we go on to the Buffalo Bills. I'm going with Kenneth Grant, the big bad Wolverine monster next to Mason Graham. He gets a lot of credit, but Kenneth Grant is also a stud in his own right, going to be a great understudy next to Daquan Jones on that interior defensive line. Obviously, you got Ed Oliver and Dwayne Carter, but you now add your group of the future. Maxwell Harrison, they need secondary help. Look, when Benford went down in that secondary, things went to poo-poo. So let's make sure we add in more help here, and Maxwell Harrison can do that. And then we got Isaiah Bond. Isaiah Bond. He's going to add some speed on the perimeter for this team. Maybe a little bit of a reach, but I still think Bond has the talents there. Really bad season for Bond, unfortunately. Overall, though, you add somebody with some speed in the room with Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel. But I think that Bond could be that long-term speed guy for them and at least just take the top off defense. Will make things easier for Shakir and Coleman. And also Dalton Kincaid. And then you got Olafemi Oladejo from UCLA, the big-time riser from the Senior Bowl. He looks like an edge rusher. He plays like an edge rusher. He is an edge rusher. The former Mike linebacker. That's the reason I said that. But anyway, he's going to be a nice developmental linebacker for this team. Yeah, they did invest in Javon Solomon last year from Troy. Anyway, I still want to invest in it here with Olafemi Oladejo. With their final pick, I'm going John Williams, the Bearcat from Cincinnati. Going to be a good developmental guard. Did play tackle, but I think he slides to the inside at the next level. And somebody that looked solid the one-on-ones in the East-West Shrine Bowl. Definitely a standout guy there. And he gives you a little more depth on the interior. Yes, they did draft the center Cedric Van Pran, but I think he's going to be more of that center developmental guy of the future there, possibly. Or behind Connor McGovern. Anyway, what about the guard position, right? You got Osiris Torrance for the future, but what about that left guard? David Edwards has been really good, though. Maybe he gets a contract extension. He's definitely earned it. He could get a payday somewhere else. It depends. But Williams adds some more depth at that guard position. And then you go to the Chiefs. You go Jihaad Campbell, linebacker from Alabama. Jihaad Campbell, you're saying, what? But I know, shaking it up here. This is one of those that could be a sneaky need, depending if Nick Bolton is re-signed or not. Now, I love that they got Drew Tranquill in there. He's a solid linebacker. And Leo Chanel is a great linebacker as well. Chanel's more of like a Sam anyway. So Campbell would be the guy next to Tranquill. And also Campbell could rush the passer. So I could see him being like a ever versatile player depending on the down and distance. And if there is something that they could use a little bit more of is somebody with some speed at the edge there. And I think Campbell can rush as a passer, be a hybrid edge rusher, linebacker for them. Just really would love to add them to this room. And if nothing else, would be a great linebacker if they lost Nick Bolton. And then you got Omari and Hampton. They need a running back. They need a run game. It was clearly a problem. They didn't run the ball at all in the first quarter because they were so scared of it. Isaiah Pacheco, yes, the injury hurt him tremendously. When he gets healthy, he should be way better and help out this run room. But they need to add, no matter what, in my opinion, Omari and Hampton will do that. You got TJ Sanders, South Carolina interior defensive lineman. He'll be a good number 2 guy next to Chris Jones. Maybe they all for more of a run defender type, but maybe at the same time they could bring back Mike Pennell or bring somebody in on the cheap as a run defender. If they lose Tayshawn Wharton, who might be the more expensive of the interior guys, then Sanders might help them out in that regard. And then you got Harold Fanning Jr., the Bowling Green tight end. Hey, this was BPA. He fell to 95. Once again, sometimes it just happens. There might be some teams that worry about his overall separation ability a little bit. But that's not really his game. Like, he knows how to get open subtly, and he catches the ball consistently. I think he'll be a really, really nice weapon, and the Chiefs give themselves a developmental guy behind Travis Kelce. Obviously, Noah Gray will end up being maybe their starter, but then you got a 1-2 punch with Fanning and Noah Gray. And then finally, you got Dylan Fairchild, offensive guard from Georgia. He's been so reliable through his career at Georgia. I'm a huge fan of Fairchild. I think he's underrated. I love his strike. His punch power, man, he just pops, dude. He's not afraid of nothing out there. Yeah, maybe he gets over his toes at times, loses his balance. Those are some things he can work on. In general, I think he fits exactly what the type of offensive lineman they look for. and could be that left guard of the future, depending on what they decide to do. Joe Thuney going to last year of his contract, so they need to find some more developmental guys in the room. And then finally, the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. Fly, baby, fly. We're going Donovan Ezaraku, the Boston College edge rusher. And I love what he brings to the table with his athleticism. He is so twitched up. His inside counter moves are some of the best in this entire draft class. It's up there with Abdul Carter. And he is going to be a really nice add to go along with Bryce Huff. Not quite working out this season, so maybe he comes along year number 2. Who knows? No matter what, though, I think they add some more help. If Josh Sweat goes out in free agency and signs somewhere else, you got to find somebody else besides Nolan Smith. And then you go on to Carson Swessinger. If they lose Zach Bond, this is going to be a big priority for them. It's finding another linebacker. I imagine they would go in free agency and get somebody, but they could possibly look to this draft where there's some good players in this range that they can find, like Carson Swessinger, really good athlete, and certainly has that sideline-to-sideline ability and a nice coverage player. Does have to get a little bit better with his stack and shed ability, so that would be the one knock on him. But if you're talking about a dude who can run all over the football field, make plays, maybe like a Zach Bond, maybe Carson Swessinger can do something like that. And then you got Ozzie Trebillo from Boston College, going to add a developmental right tackle for this team, and just add, if nothing else, a swing tackle for them. They're going to need some help in that regard early on. And then with the final pick, Benjamin Jurasik, formerly of Stanford, now at Georgia. He goes into the draft this year and gives them a developmental tight end with 1 year left on Dallas Carter's contract. They need to at least think about drafting to develop. You got Grant Gutera. However, I think they could use a little more competition, and Jurasik has all of the traits, the athletic traits at least, and he's gotten better as a blocker too now that he's been at Georgia. So that's going to do it here for this 4-round mock draft. Let me know what you think. I hope you had enjoyed. If you didn't, let me know why. Let me know what did I do wrong. Anyway, have a really good day and have a really good start to the week, and I'll talk to you here soon.